How close are we to a regional war and to sought-after regime collapse? Joining me tonight via Zoom due to the threat of rocket fire are Dan Perry, former AP Middle East editor, and Ruthie Bloom, senior political commentator. Let's get started. Now, I want to start, Ruthie and Dan, thanks so much for being here via Zoom with a very important question. I think the question on the table is, are we winning right now? Just as we met, we came out of rocket fire, direct strike, at least 6 injured. So here we are, military, strategically. Ruthie, what do you think?
Yes, of course we're winning. Okay, it takes time, and in historical terms, this is a blip on the radar. Since October 7th, 2023, we've been fighting a 7-front war, and we're now, thanks to cooperation with the United States, we're tackling the head of the octopus.
Dan, do you agree with Ruthie's sentiment?
Fundamentally, it's difficult to dispute that the opening minutes and hours of this operation constituted a strategic success that is rare in history. I don't hardly remember any situation like what we saw with the complete domination imposed by the U.S. and Israel over the skies of Iran on Saturday and ever since, and the utter decapitation of the regime, from the supreme leader who'd been in charge for 36 years to about 40 of his lieutenants, to 2 successive defense ministers, to the former president, to every senior advisor and military chief and head of the Revolutionary Guards. It's beyond belief. And I would add that Israel and the U.S. fighting side by side in a manner that we've rarely seen with NATO allies even, is something that would have been unimaginable, throughout Israel's history, and constitutes a strategic shift that portrays to the region a level of resilience on the part of Israel and a level of potential projection of power on the part of Israel that could easily be abused, but should certainly give its enemies pause.
For sure. And now the U.S. says it has destroyed IRGC command centers, missile launch sites, and air defenses. So, Ruthie, what does that actually mean in practical terms? Again, we're still seeing rockets rain down on Israel. So has Iran lost real capability? How many more missiles can Israel expect to see?
Oh, probably many more, although Israel and the U.S. are going after the launchers. Without the launchers, the missiles aren't worth anything. But the most extraordinary thing that's happened, I believe, is the acknowledgement by envoy Steve Witkoff on Sean Hannity on Fox yesterday that from the second meeting over so-called negotiations, it was clear that the Islamic Republic was not going to budge, and said it was going, and it also had the capability of creating 11 nuclear bombs within a week, something like that. And why I say that's so significant is that in the weeks following President Trump's post to the Iranian people that they should take to the streets because help was on the way, we saw weeks when we were waiting for Godot and we thought it's not happening, and Witkoff and Kushner, and they're talking about negotiations, and it seemed like, maybe they're actually persuading Trump that there is such a thing as a diplomatic deal with those evil dictators, and it turns out they weren't being fooled.
Netanyahu says that this is going to be a very quick and decisive war. Realistically, how long do you think this could last? Is it the 4 to 6 weeks that Trump and Netanyahu are talking about? Or, as Europe and all of these Middle East countries are being dragged in, could this last even longer?
Yeah, of course, Mayan. It's impossible to prophesize. This could last a long, long time, and it could end tomorrow with Trump saying, this is regime change. We've done regime change. We've eliminated all the leaders, and so it's a different regime. Let's see if they learn a lesson of their mulish predecessors, who I wiped out in a manner that no president could ever have done. That could happen tomorrow. And it wouldn't be illogical. It wouldn't be illogical to see if this time the new leadership that probably is terrified, no matter what their bluster says, is willing to essentially accept the diktat on a nuclear issue, on the ballistic missiles limitation that the West wants to impose, and on ending all support for the proxy militias. The problem here, there are many problems here, alongside the astonishing success that I described. And one of them is that the people whose comments you are asking us to comment on are not credible. I mean, Trump can't be believed. Anyone paying attention knows that when he speaks, he's not constrained by the facts. Trump said 6 months ago or 8 months ago that the Iranian nuclear program had been obliterated and we don't even need a deal. And I'm quoting. So all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe that they had weapons that could be launched at Israel, nuclear weapons, within days. We don't know who to believe. Netanyahu says one thing, he says another thing. It doesn't hardly matter. The only thing that we can say for sure is that the Iranian regime is obviously evil. You know, there's an international norm that was established in 2005 called the responsibility to protect by the United Nations. And it basically says that when a government clearly cannot be trusted with the safety of its own people, never mind of the region, then the international community has an obligation to stand in the way. And that doesn't have to mean military action, but it also justifies military action. This was foreseen as being something the Security Council would have to approve. But of course, the Security Council has become dysfunctional because of Russia and China, who are going to veto anything against Iran. But the principle remains. And we have here a fairly absurd situation in which these two most imperfect vessels, whose words cannot be believed, and who are in various ways corrupt along a variety of verticals, are conducting something that actually could be the first true manifestation of this moral imperative of the responsibility to protect. It is rife with irony. And by the way, if you doubt the corruption I'm talking about, there are reports coming out right now that Likud officials are thinking of bringing up the elections to capitalize on the potential political benefits of a successful operation in Iran.
I would like to address what Dan just said.
I thought you might.
First of all, neither leader, in my opinion, is corrupt. Second, the fact that it's true that Trump speaks and he says all kinds of things, but his actions throughout his presidency have been very solid. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is not a liar, and he's been very consistent about Iran throughout his entire career, even before he entered politics, basically. That's number one. Number two, to say that he launched a war to win an election, that is disgusting, and it's a lie, okay? If anybody has ever been measured, it's been, oh, come on. Really, Netanyahu is going to endanger people's lives, and he's going to undertake such a, and by the way, the United States wouldn't just be dragged in by Netanyahu to a war because he's going to an election. That's insane, and it's not true. How do I know? How does Amos Malka know? How do you know? Those are just the anybody but Bibi talking points.
You know what? May I respond?
Of course, Dan, please go ahead.
So, I think you have to be very credulous. And Ruthie, I know that you're not naive. You have to be very credulous to think that political calculations do not enter Netanyahu's thinking. Amos Malka said on the basis of working closely with Netanyahu for years that he thinks he might start a war with Iran 2 weeks before the election. And the incredible thing is that the radio interviewer didn't blink. And that no one thought it was a scandal because so clear is it that it is not outside the realm of possibility for Netanyahu. He wouldn't do it for no reason. As I said before, there's every reason to seek the removal of the regime in Iran for Israel's benefit, for the benefit of the people of Iran, for the benefit of the region. But would the timing potentially be related to Bibi's political expedience? Of course. And anyone who says otherwise truly doesn't know, and I'm very, very sorry. But the idea that there is a reason to remove this regime and there is an opportunity to remove the regime is indisputable.
Okay, but Dan, let me ask you a question, Dan. If regime change is really the goal here, why are we not seeing the Iranians taking to the streets like Trump and Netanyahu are calling on them to do? We saw polls that only about 10% of Iranians reportedly support this regime, but we're not seeing the opposition that we saw before these attacks. And regime change...
Would you guys take to the streets? Would you take to the streets right now, either of you? I'm not sure I would, and I'm very, very brave. But it is complex.
Also, by the way, Trump actually told the Iranian people not to do it just yet. He said, wait.
That's true.
Wait a little while and then take to the streets.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. He told them to stay home. But I will say one thing, that Witkoff, what he said, it wasn't that he said, Iran has enough uranium-enriched material to create bombs, nuclear bombs. He said that that's what the Iranians told him in those meetings. Why is that significant? Because they were in the middle of negotiating, and supposedly, Witkoff, by the way, is not Trump, all right? Witkoff and Kushner don't speak like Trump, and they're much more measured and all that. And Trump, he speaks from the hip. They do not. And I actually believe they thought, because they're deal makers, that they could make a deal. It was their Iranian counterparts who announced proudly that they have that material and that they're not going to give up on it no matter what. And then Witkoff said, we even said to them, if this isn't for nuclear bombs and it's only for civilian use, we'll pay for it. We'll let you have enough for civilian use, and we'll even pay for it. And they said no. So whether or not they do have enough for bombs or they don't, my point is that Witkoff was quoting them.
Oh, by the way, there's no such thing. There's no reason to enrich uranium beyond a 5% level unless your goal is to weaponize it. So the Iranians have forever been denied they want a nuclear weapon, but they've also admitted that they've enriched at least 60%, and we believe 80%. All of this suggests a lot of chicanery on the part of the Iranians. But allow me to be skeptical about whether the nuclear issue is actually the reason why this war started. They saw an opportunity to take out the regime, and the regime is so worthy of being taken out that the question becomes, is it feasible? And I have to say that there were real concerns, valid concerns, that it would be a reckless action without likelihood of regime change because the damage Iran can cause would be so great. And over the past 3-4 days, we've heard various claims that Iran has really lashed out wildly. But I have to say, not that much has happened. Their effort to involve the GCC countries has backfired. Now Qatar is against them as well. Their effort to strike at Cyprus has backfired because now European countries who always would have supported it, some of them are openly supporting it as well. And you have a rare consensus in the world against the regime. So rather than us here quibble about whether we think that these two miscreants, Trump and Netanyahu, are trying to achieve political benefit, I think clearly, potentially, and Ruthie, I love how much faith you have in these guys. I think the bigger question is regime change at this point actually possible? And which of the two choices is wiser right now? And real quick, the choices are to pause the war and see if these idiots have learned their lesson and see if we can impose something on them, or to continue until the regime collapses fully. And that is a dangerous path, because at that point, they may indeed seek the Samson option of going down with the entire region. For example, firing all their missiles at Israel all at once. That would be inconvenient. And they could do a lot more damage with short-range missiles vis-a-vis countries like Dubai, or rather UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, who are very, very close to them. The problems are clear. And the choice really is, to use a cliche, stark. And I'm not sure what I would recommend.
When this war ends, do you believe that we're going to be safer than we were before it started? This is the final sentiments. Just 1 minute answer, please. And unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up. Are we going to be safer than before?
Okay, one word answer, yes.
Not one word answer, one sentence. But Dan, why don't you go ahead and add a sentence as well? Wrap us up with what do you believe? Will we be safer when this war is over or not?
My assessment is that if we know when to end the war, then certainly so. Clearly, even if the Islamic Republic survives in some form, logically they will be chastened. There's a very good chance that their misbehavior around the region will be stemmed, and it'll be possible maybe even to contemplate forcing on them constitutional changes that ease Iran away from the Islamic Republic. I said before which choice I would do. Do you continue to try to bring it down fully, or pause and see if they can sign surrender terms? I'm inclined to think I would go for the latter and see, indeed, if they've learned their lesson. But either way, Either way, the fact that Iran has been schooled so spectacularly, without a doubt, leaves not only Israel safer, but I dare say the entire region safer, which is why you don't really see that much complaint.
No, I'm not sure if we want to keep that Iranian regime in place and whether or not Iran can ever learn their lesson, but certainly would be a utopia situation. If you found this discussion valuable, please check out the ILTV podcast for a further series of in-depth interviews